This is the 13th webinar we have done. We have talked on different topics so far. And most of the topic which we have talked about is in two categories, either in terms of the tools which can be used for the lean adoption. And second, we have talked about that how do you have certain concepts employed into your organization using these tools so that you can have higher productivity into your organizations. And that's where we thought that, since we have talked about these kind of the things in the past, before we go more into the relevant tools, why not talk about where does this all lead to? So operational excellence is now, more kind of a focus for almost all the companies. And increasingly, very large companies are now, trying to go even for the Deming Award, which is the, one of the topmost, and the Shingo Awards, which is one of the topmost awards into, the operational excellences. So we thought, why not, talk about the operational excellence today? And we'll talk about this entire topic today. So if I just put one statement before I start, then that statement would be that operational excellence is now no longer the exception. Okay, it is no longer something that, wow, this is a company which is working on the operational excellence, but rather now it is the expectations of the customers. So almost every customer is looking forward to you adopting the excellence into any facet of your business. Okay, so that's why the operational excellence is no longer the exception. Okay, so let's talk. Today we are going to spend time on this. So let's talk about what is this. So culture of excellence, and that's what you have to build into your organization, right? So culture of excellence is a long journey, and it has many steps, starting with few success stories, and gradually those success stories start gripping the entire organization. And it's a momentum. Generally, what happens into the culture of excellence is that you have to create a momentum where nothing but the best satisfies the employees and the employer, who start taking pride in being the best into the business. So, when you come down into the excellence, all it comes down and stops at is that, are you the best among the best? Okay. And that's where this whole journey is all about. Okay. Culture of excellence produces a learning environment where people continuously develop their skills, keeping up with the latest trends in the industry. Challenging the status quo and constant search for improvement are pursued and valued. That's a standard thing into the culture of excellence. It also creates a flexible environment where each employee is willing to change as needed, and the culture is stable in vision, mission, and values, but elastic in structure and operations. They're very important. The culture is stable in vision, mission, and values, but elastic in structure and operations. Okay. So as we expand, as we grow, our structures and operations may keep on changing and keep on adopting what has to be done as the best, but our culture, as part of our vision and mission, cannot change. So our culture has to still remain consistent. We are focused on external adoption and internal operations, satisfying customers and employees simultaneously. So we are not, as part of the excellence, going to focus only on saying that let's satisfy the customers or let's first put the employees first. In our excellence, employees and customers both have to be put together on the pedestal. Okay? And that builds high confidence in the employees, who seem to then willing to take up the seemingly impossible task also for execution without the hesitation. So culture of operational excellence, I can also characterize it as the success becoming a habit. Okay, so that's what the culture of operational excellence is. Operational excellence is also the execution of the business strategy more consistently and reliably than the competition. However, the focus of operational excellence goes beyond the traditional event-based model of the improvement towards a long-term change in organizational culture. So today what we are going to do is we are going to talk about what is operational excellence quickly. We are going to talk about the 4 building blocks which are involved in the operational excellence. We will also talk about house of operational excellence, and probably I'll take 1 or 2 examples of large companies, how they have built their operational excellence models. Okay, so that is what we are going to cover today. So let's begin with a very basic thing. What is operational excellence? Okay. And There are many definitions. I'm going to pick up one of the standard definition as well and talk about it. But in my mind, operational excellence is a relentless pursuit of finding ways to improve the performance and profitability. Okay, any pursuance which is not going to yield the profitability is not going to be a healthy scenario. So performance and profitability, they both have to be inside, hand in hand, pursued all the way. Okay? And the concept of operational excellence effectively actually was started in the manufacturing industry, probably way back, with the concepts like lean methodology, Six Sigma, and so on. And Toyota Production System perhaps was one of the first one which adopted this concept more holistically. So we will just go through a quick definition of what is the operational excellence, and then after that we'll go more in detail over here. So Business Directory defines the operational excellence as a philosophy of the workplace where problem solving, teamwork, and leadership results in the ongoing improvement in an organization. The process involves focusing on the customer's needs, keeping the employees positive and empowered, and continually improving current activities in the workplace. So three things constantly: customer and employees and continuous improvement. All the three have to go hand in hand, and that has to be a culture of working in your organization. That's what the operational excellence would turn out to. Operational excellence is also a kind of a philosophy, but it's also the execution of the business strategy more consistently and reliably than the competition. Okay, and focus of the operational excellence has to go beyond the traditional event-based model of improvement to a rather long-term change in the organizational culture. Okay, it involves setting up the organization for growth, which means that understanding what the market wants and create an uninterrupted value stream that always feeds the need, even if it changes. Okay. So operational excellence is not just confined to the executive suite or the factory floor. Okay. It involves every person at every level of the organization, because every role is doing something that brings value to the customer and is therefore on the critical path to success. Hence, we say it is a philosophy of leadership, teamwork, and problem solving, resulting into the continuous improvement throughout the organization by focusing on the needs to the customer, empowering employees, and optimizing existing activities in the process. Okay, so that's what we would, come back and talk about the operational excellence over here. Even in this chart, you can see there is a continuous improvement as you keep moving upwards on the quality side. As the time passes through, you start consolidating and you continuously, improve by putting the supporting blocks of the standardization. Okay, that's the only way in which you can keep growing to the top. Otherwise, your continuous improvement will roll back the hill and it is not going to take you forward. So, as I said, earlier I took the name Shingo Award. So, a lot of people consider Dr. Shigeo Shingo to be the father of the operational excellence. Okay? He is the main person who started with this whole concept. And throughout his life, he has written, I think, 18 books specifically on these topics. And even before, he made this lean manufacturing or Six Sigma as popular, Dr. Shingo wrote about the ideas of ensuring quality at the source, flowing value to customer, just-in-time inventory, and going to the Gemba. Okay, so he wrote probably way before even people could conceptualize. Okay? Lean manufacturing and Six Sigma have come probably much later. In his days, while working on this entire concept, he also worked very closely with the Toyota executives, and these are the people who also helped him to apply his conceptual ideas to the real situation. Each year, Shingo Institute at the Utah State University offers the Shingo Prize for Operational Excellence. Okay? And this is a very well coveted award. Companies which can get this award or this prize, they actually are one of the best of the best. Okay? This award is actually based upon the 10 guiding principles of Shingo model. And what are these 10 principles? I'll not go in detail. I'll just read it out to you. One is respect for individual, lead with humility, seek perfection, embrace scientific thinking, focus on processes, assure quality at source, flow and pull value, think systematically, create consistency of purpose, and create value for the customer. If you notice over here, very interestingly, it starts with respect for individual. Okay, if I don't have the respect for my employees and I don't lead with the humility, the culture of excellence will not come in place. So more than just building up the right kind of the tools, right kind of standards and so on and so forth, we also need to build the culture into the organization to adopt these kind of the methodologies and grow with it. So these are the 10 principles by which the Shingo Award is kind of calculated. Okay, I'll quickly talk about the major steps you can take to move towards the operational excellence into your organization. So there are many steps, there are many models. I picked up the 6-step model, and I'm going to talk about the 6 steps right now. So the first step is introduce employees to operational excellence. Okay, what it means is that introduce the concept in a way that emphasizes the desire to provide the ultimate value to the customer with the most efficient use of resources along the way. If your employees are introduced to operational excellence, they understand that, and they understand that what kind of the value they are going to provide, the ball will start rolling very fast and very easily. Okay. Second step, which is very important and is also part of a management philosophy, but it's also equally important for the operational excellence, reduce the top-down thinking. Okay. Most of the traditional companies operate in a strict top-down fashion with all directions coming from the top. Okay. Operational excellence requires a different approach in which frontline employees are empowered to recognize and respond to interruptions in the flow of value. So you have to empower your employees. Then only the employees can take the decisions and they can actually react to a situation in a right way on the shop floor. Things start turning out far better. Okay, so that's a second step. The third step is visualize flow. So although the overarching objectives of the operational excellence always remains to create an unhindered flow of value to the customer, another of our primary concern always will be that do we have the enough transparency? So if we see the roadblocks, process irregularities, resources that are not at capacity, poorly aligned goals you can do something about, then we should intervene over there. And that's why many of the improvement tools which we deploy are designed in such a way that they allow the visual management. Okay. Now, visual management is altogether a separate subject which goes very well along with the fibers and so on and so forth. But we should also recognize that most of the tools, when we have the visual management embedded into it, that's only to ensure that that brings a complete transparency to us. Okay, so that's another important part over here. People, process, images. If there is some kind of a visual or there is a kind of a graph, chart, photographs and activities, then they can process the visuals much more quickly than the text. And that's why we use the icons, signs that use the color and shape, dashboards, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the ability to visualize and visualize the flow is very, very important part in this. We have to then take a fourth step, that is introduce standard work for normal and abnormal flow. Okay, without a standard, there can be no improvement. We need standards for everything. We talked earlier that about the importance of scientific thinking. I think somewhere in the 10 principles we talked about it. The standard is like a control group for your improvement experiments. In most cases, processes will run normally and the usual standard can be applied. But then there should also be standard work for when processes become out of control so that the people on the front line know exactly what they should do. Okay, so some kind of a mistake proofing or the failure handling also should be part of this entire thing. So that's why you need a standard work for normal and abnormal flow. The fifth step is align objectives and accountability. Okay. So, and most of the companies will come back and say, we have a very clear set of business objectives, right? But part of the strategy deployment, when we go into those 4 building blocks, we'll talk about the strategy deployments. Part of the strategy deployment is that we ensure that each individual knows that how they can best contribute to achieving the most important goal. I may have the business objectives as a C-suite of the company, as the executives in the company, does my every employee but know about it? And if not, then they must be told about it. And if they know about it, then they can contribute in the best possible way. Okay. And the final step is that set up the framework for collaboration and improvement. So having your structure to your improvement work is very, very crucial. Your improvement platform should provide a central repository for all opportunities for improvement, allow for cross-functional collaborations, and offer active alerts and notifications to make sure that the progress never stops. Okay. Now, you can also use the technology over here to serve as a knowledge bank for the organization, so that any kind of a lesson which are learned in this whole journey of the continuous improvement, they're never lost. Okay. So these are the 6 steps which we can take. So introduce employees to operational excellence, reduce top-down thinking, visualize flow, introduce the standard work for normal and abnormal flow, align objectives and accountability, and set up the framework for collaboration and improvement. Okay, so these are the 6 steps which we will go. We will now talk about the 4 building blocks for the operational excellence. Okay, so let me go to that slide only, and then I'll explain it rather, something else. Okay, so achieving operational excellence requires the successful implementation of a integrated business education system that effectively and seamlessly integrates the following 4 building blocks. I would start with the blue one. The first one is strategy deployment, move on to performance management, take the third is the process excellence, and the last one will be the high performance work teams. Okay, and these are the 4 building blocks for business execution system. Okay, first one, strategy deployment. This essentially is alignment, linking objectives, initiatives, execution through mapping and planning. So this is all about how do you create the strategy and how do you deploy, align them and deploy them in the organization. The second one, performance management, is all about kind of the measuring your performance, using the KPIs, dashboards, and aligning them cross-functionally across the organization. It should not be just a department specific. Process excellence, the third part is, it becomes process-centric, and it talks about the efficient and effective management, value chain and support processes alignment, and all put together leading towards the process excellence. Okay. Fourth one is the high performance work teams, where values, right attitudes and mindset, employee engagement and empowerment, and coaching leadership development are very important parts. So these are the 4 building blocks which make up the operational excellence model. I'm going to briefly now talk about each of these blocks and help you to understand each of these blocks. Okay. So strategy deployment, or we can also call it as a policy deployment, is the process that aligns and links business strategy and its execution. And strategy is an expression of what an organization intends to do to get from a current state to a future state. Okay? And that's what normally everyone wants. We are into position A, we want to go to position B. What is our strategy to move from position A to position B? So that's what it is all about. Okay, and that's why we always explain it in terms of a vision statement, objectives, goals, initiatives, mission, and so on and so forth. So that's what our strategy is. Let's also understand certain facts about the strategy. It's very common to talk about the strategy, saying that, oh, I have a wonderful strategy in the organization. My entire business is revolving around a particular strategy and so on and so forth. But let's look at some statistics. A survey which was done actually tells us that only 5% of the workforce understands what is their company's strategy. Okay, and only 25% of the managers have the incentives linked to the strategy. So if I don't have the incentives linked to my strategy, I don't have any motivation. Okay, so it should be actually 100%, but it's only 25%. 60% of the organizations don't link budgets to the strategy. They all think that the strategy can be executed without spending any money. Okay, no, it does take money, and you have to allocate certain budgets for the improvement and so on and so forth. And 86% of the executive teams spend less than 1 hour per month discussing the strategy. So if I have a big strategy and I really want to move and I'm not even monitoring that strategy, I'm not even after that and running up, heavily after it. My executives are not even spending time. How do you think that my strategy will be achieved? Okay, so an effective strategy creation could be, very common, but effective strategy implementation is actually very rare, and that's why it needs to follow certain processes. Okay, so that's so much about the strategy. So when we go into the strategy, we talk about the strategy deployment processes, and strategy deployment processes, almost everybody will define them in their own way. Management schools have got their own philosophies. Management consultants have got their own, ways of, suggesting it to their customers and so on and so forth. I'm picking up certain, very common perspectives which have to be into the strategy deployment process. So the first one is that you need to organize all the processes. So whatever processes you want to, improve upon, you need to organize. That means ensure that you have grouped all the tasks, you have delegated the right authorities, you have allocated the resources and so on and so forth, so that the processes are structured and organized for accepting the growth or moving forward. Okay. Then what is important is that we also need to do the current state analysis. Okay. That means we need to know, we need to identify and evaluate that what is our business's current processes and how our organization can actually move forward. Okay. If there are certain processes which are blocking, there are certain processes which are very good. What is our state? So current state analysis is very important into this. Then the third comes is that based upon this, now we have a vision statement which describes the future aspirations of the organization. And in that, you can define the dream, you can define the long-term goals, you can define the unconditional direction which you want your organization to take. But all this has to come only when you have structured your processes, you have taken a current state analysis of those processes, and then you set up the vision so that this becomes a realistic kind of a vision. Okay. Now, having set the vision, you need to have the breakthrough objectives. Okay. And what are the breakthrough objectives? These are nothing but the targets that can only be achieved when you have the significant changes to the way the company operates. Okay. Company cannot achieve the higher objectives by doing the same thing which it has been doing for years in and out. Okay. You have to have some kind of the breakthrough objectives which come down very heavily along with this aggressive strategic plan. Okay. So breakthrough objectives which make you, really rocket through is very, very important. And then you need the strategic initiatives to support those breakthrough objectives. So strategic initiatives which are nothing but the action plan focused on is achieving those specific breakthrough objectives or closing a gap between a measure's performance and its target. So if you measure something and the performance is telling you that, I am achieving 30% and my target is to reach 70%, then my strategic initiative has to be planned out over here as an action plan, which ensures that the gap between 30 to 70 is closed very quickly and very rapidly and effectively. So that's what the strategic initiatives have to be done. And you have to timely review all the implementation of these strategies, because if you don't do that, then your strategies will never remain successful, because when will these strategies or the initiatives get derailed, you will not even come to know. So it's very important that you're constantly watching them very closely and critically monitoring them. These are the kind of the 6 strategy deployment processes which become important when we move ahead and say that we want the strategy to be successful into our organization. People create generic strategic maps. The map which I'm showing you is based upon the Richard Kaplan's balanced scorecards. And if you use the balanced scorecard, it can help you to focus on improving business financial values using the core values, skills and knowledge, innovation in processes, product leadership, and a growth strategy which is based on the new revenue sources and customer sources. Okay, so you can use this balanced scorecards to create your generic strategy map, and this generic strategy map can be your first point of moving forward. Okay, some people also use Xmetrics. That's another kind of a tool, and when you have actually the strategy deployment, you actually have to work, on the Sometimes people also call it as a policy deployment. So policy or a strategy deployment, when you want to do, you need an alignment between the people, purpose, priorities, and processes. Okay. So these 4 P's, people, purpose, priorities, and processes, that full alignment into that is very, very important. And that's where the X matrix is another tool which can be used. In this particular case, degree of alignment is mapped visually, and this tool helps you to link strategic objectives to operational targets, and those targets to functions, and subsequently to relevant processes. Okay. This matrix also translates into the breakthrough objectives, into the operational targets, and then the team's work bottoms up to identify the required resources, skills, and structures to achieve those strategic objectives. Once this information is available, targets and timelines are defined, and the process starts once again for the next planning cycle. So it's a cyclic thing. It doesn't stop at one. It keeps going into a complete cycle. Okay. X matrix, or some people also call it as a Hoshin X matrix. This enables an organization to easily review the alignment of its strategic objectives, strategic initiatives, key performance indicators, key action items, and the human resources. Okay. So if you use this properly, it improves the likelihood of a successful execution of the strategic plan. And these X matrix tools and other things, a lot of Japanese companies use it. A lot of the Western and European companies also have started using now. So Hoshin Kanri is the Japanese word for the policy deployment. There are a lot of training sessions also which happen. We also do the training on the Hoshin Kanri, that how do you actually implement these kind of the strategy deployment tools. Okay. So this is the first building block. You create the strategy and you plan for deploying this strategy effectively into your organization for the operational excellence. The second one, which we'll talk about as the box, is the performance management. And what is this? So performance management is the process which can translate the strategic initiatives into measurable objectives and goals. So if we don't monitor and if we don't continuously measure that what we have achieved, then it is not going to help us. So that's why performance management becomes the second building block. That is, your strategy really working or not? Okay. And that's again where we also use the balance scorecards, and which are nothing but the strategy maps. Today, balance scorecards have actually, sorry, I said earlier, Richard Kaplan, right? No, so it's a Robert Kaplan and David Norton. So Robert Kaplan and the David Norton, they actually created the strategy maps called the balance scorecards. And today you have the balance scorecard for the operational excellence, for the business overall. You have it for the HR. People have started developing it for IT. So there are all kind of the strategy maps now which are coming in based upon the balance scorecard concept. Okay. So you can also develop and deploy the balance scorecards for your performance management over here. Okay. Developing and deploying balance scorecards helps the management team to focus on the execution of their business strategy, and it also focuses on aligning the organization to the common goals and objectives. Okay. These scorecards enable the organization to understand the relationship between measures and performance, and they improve the communication of organizational priorities across an organization and help employees to understand and focus on the organizational priorities. And that helps in realizing the relevant results. Balance scorecards also assist in reducing the number of metrics to the few vital key performance indicators while strengthening and formalizing the project selection process to focus on key capabilities and enablers. So that's the balance scorecard, and these are also used for the performance management. So if we quickly look into what is the balance scorecard, it usually has got the 4 perspectives. The bottommost is the learning and growth perspective, which drives the improvement in internal capacity. Above that is the internal perspective, which is on the right-hand side, which helps in improving the internal processes and discipline. The third perspective on the top is the financial perspective, and this improves the fiscal results. And the last one is the customer perspective, which focuses on improvement in customer and stakeholder satisfaction. Okay, and all these perspectives are driven by this vision and strategy which has been laid out in the beginning itself. And It looks simple, but it has got a lot of details which go into it. And there are, a lot of measurements which are built into it. A lot of KPIs are identified as part of it. And that's what it helps you to retain a focus on your vision and strategy. Okay. So there are 3 clear phases when we want to do the performance management. And these 3 clear phases involve the 9 steps. So the first phase is setting up the strategic foundation. Okay? And this requires setting up or doing the strategic alignment. Second step, key strategic focus areas and objectives. And third is define the strategic grid and the model by which our strategic deployment can be done. Okay. Then we have a third phase where we again have the 3 critical components, that is define the key performance indicators, define the goals and targets, and define the various initiatives and programs to support your strategy. And then now you actually go into deploying this strategy, which is integrate that with your existing processes, team, people, and so on and so forth. Cascade your goals and cascade your strategy and all the initiatives and breakthrough objectives and so on to the entire team, and then manage it. So these are the 9 steps through which we actually go into the deployment of the performance management process over here. So that's the second building block for the operational excellence, strategy deployment and the performance management. Now we come to the third block, which is the process excellence. Process excellence is all about well-designed, efficient, and effective management, value chain, and support processes, which ensure that you can deliver world-class results. Okay? So all your processes also have to be well-oiled machine, and they have to be performing in sync with each other against your alignment, against your goals, so that all these processes enable you to deliver the world-class results. That's what the process excellence is all about. Okay. Process excellence is actually a large topic. A lot of people also confuse between the process excellence and the operational excellence. People feel that if I have got my excellence into processes, my operational excellence is also guaranteed. But process excellence actually is just a subset of the operational excellence. The other 3 building blocks are needed to make the process excellence actually succeed. Okay. So process excellence by that definition is only about the process effectiveness and efficiency, and it requires processes to be designed and improved for consistent delivery with minimum variation and minimum waste. It is also used as part of the Six Sigma and Lean methodology. So that's where the process excellence comes into it. Okay, so you have a basic process input, you go through the process, and you have a process output. You have a strategic and annual operating plan, which has to be exceeding the plan. The process has to ensure that you are actually exceeding the plan. You are not just completing the plan. Okay. So there are multiple steps which go into it. I'm not going to go into them right now. So as I said, process excellence is all about the Six Sigma and Lean principle. It heavily draws upon these 2 methodologies. Okay. And while the Six Sigma would rely upon the DMAC, which is the define, measure, analyze, improve, and control, Lean principles advocates the create value, map value stream, create flow, establish goal, and persuade the perfection. Okay. So both the methodologies have got their own approach of ensuring that you excel into whatever you're trying to do, and they have created their own models into it. DMAC is more in terms of improving your existing systems and processes, where the Lean is talking about creating the value as a major part into it. Apart from that, what happens is that you can also use the 7 steps of the business process improvement, and you can also, which you can use for the process development or improvement and management. You can also use the tools like 8D for systematic, scientific, and disciplined problem solving overall. So what we always require is, when we want to excel into our processes or improve our processes, we need something which can help to improve the processes. We need something which lets you create the value out of those processes. There is something which helps you to reorganize your business and improve your business overall around those new processes, and certain things which help you to troubleshoot the problems which come while improving the processes. So from the 4 different angles, we need to bring them together and then work upon improving our processes. So if you look into it, you can even use the DMAC as a major part, which is the Six Sigma side, DMAIC in its own way, define, measure, analyze, improve, and control, in its own ways, it still works with both the things, Six Sigma as well as the Lean. And Six Sigma is nothing but about understanding and eliminating variation in a process. It always works upon improving the process, while the Lean works upon creating the flow and identifying a waste in the process of value stream, so that there is an overall improvement in a quick manner. Both of them, if you work together and if you combine them up, that always leads to the process excellence. So this is the basic framework under which the process excellence is kind of taken up. Okay. As I said in the beginning, it's a large topic. Probably at some point we will go more in detail about it, and also explain that how does these kind of the things work and how it can help you to improve your processes in your organization, get the best value out of those processes, reduce the waste and the lesser value being derived from the processes, and improve over there, so that you have a lean culture and you have a process excellence in your organization. Okay, we'll come to the fourth block, which is the high performance work teams. Now, operational excellence can only be achieved and sustained when you have the right attitude, right mindset, and the right competencies. Which basically means is that you have a group of goal-focused individuals with specialized expertise and even the complementary skills. Yeah, I think complementary is the right word. Even the complementary skills who collaborate, innovate, produce consistently superior results. Okay, so they not only just have got the expertise, not only they are goal-focused, but they also have the skills to collaborate, innovate, and produce consistently. Okay, so that's a kind of a high-performance work team definition, and that's needed to ensure your strategic deployment is done correctly, you can measure it properly, and you can excel in your processes, which is all done by these high-performance work teams. Okay. So, what is a high-performance work team? One of the factors I'm just picking up, the factor which I'm picking up is that these teams need to be empowered. If the empowerment is zero, then the team will not be able to perform. And how do we define the empowerment? We define the empowerment in terms of the authority, resources, information, and accountability. So if my team doesn't have the authority, do not have the resources, do not have the information of what to act upon, and even if I have all the three, but I am not accountable for it, I won't feel empowered, I won't be empowered. Okay, so we need a combination of all these things given and provided to our employees over here. Okay, so it's also well known that if I have the high empowerment given to my team, the output of this particular team is very, very high. And if I have a low empowerment to the team, my leaders also will not be able to deliver very high, because they are not empowered, they don't have the accountability, or they don't have the resources, or so on. So their team performance will always be timid or less compared to the highly empowered teams. Okay? So this is a critical factor into the high performance teams. I'm going to pick up a perspective over here. Two authors, Ken Blanchard and Sheldon Bowles, wrote a book called Gung Ho, Turn on the People in Any Organization. So that's a book which these two gentlemen have written. And it's a very famous, very good, book being used into the management. HR professionals would know this book by default, because one of the good way of motivating or setting up the teams into the high performance mode. And this book talks about the three things: spirit of the squirrel, way of the beaver, and gift of the goose. So they have taken three animals and woven around the whole thing. So this is a fable-based kind of a book, picking up the three animals and then talking about their different habits. Okay. And I'm not going to talk about the habit of each of this particular thing, but I'm going to talk about that what it actually means. So the spirit of the squirrel in their book represents educating the employees on the value and importance of their work. Okay, that's what spirit of this squirrel is. All of our staff members play a role in the success of our company, and we want them to understand how truly important they are. Okay. So this type of team focuses on worthwhile work. They have three principles. They know that they make the world a better place. Okay, that's a belief they carry. They believe that everyone is working towards a shared goal. And they also believe that the values guide the plans, decisions, and actions. So these are the three value propositions the teams called Spirit of the Squirrel will go by. Okay. The second thing which they identify is the way of the beaver. Okay. And what it means is that when the people have the spirit of the squirrel, which gives them the purpose and direction, the way of beaver describes how work should be done. Okay. So normally the beaver type of the team is always in control of achieving their goals. So they have a playing field with a clearly marked boundaries or the territories. The thoughts, feelings, needs, and dreams of each person are respected, listened to, and acted upon. And beaver teams are very able, but also equally challenging. Okay, so the beavers actually show that how the work should be done. Okay? The third animal they picked up is the gift of the goose. Okay, so he says that when you have a flock of the goose flying, you will always hear them croaking, always making some sound. And what he interprets that is that they are actually cheering one another. And that's a gift he says that humans can learn a lot from. Cheering is free and leads to intrinsic motivation. So the goose team is actually a cheerleadership kind of a team. It's active or passive, any kind of a congratulation that has to be always there. So if something has been achieved, you must be having a cheerleader team which can congratulate you and make you feel important about it. If there is no score, there is no game, whatever it is, the cheer still has to be there so that people progress. People feel, no, I am still into the game. I'll go ahead and do it. So that motivation has to be there. He puts up very interestingly E minus MC square, which is the Albert Einstein equation, to say that enthusiasm equals mission times, cash, and congratulations. Okay, so what he's basically saying is that you cheer the people, you also reward every time there is enthusiasm, every time your enthusiasm leads to meeting the mission, then you have to by cash or congratulation award them or make them feel intrinsically very highly motivated. So his point is that have the spirit of the squirrel, have the way of the beaver, and have the gift of the goose. All the three types of the team members have to be part of your high performance work teams. Okay, if you have this kind of a team, you definitely can deliver better results. So these are the four building blocks which the performance, your operational excellence requires. Okay. Now, there is another thing which I'm going to talk about. When we start transitioning the organization from a more traditional top-down organization to an organization which is built around this high-performance work teams, then one important thing happens. The role of the supervisor changes from being a supervisor to become a role of leader and coach with 6 distinctive capabilities. And these 6 distinctive capabilities are coach, barrier buster, business analyzer, facilitator, result catalyst, and living example. Okay? So as a leader on the shop floor, your operational excellence has to lead to a culture of building the leaders rather than a supervisor. And that fundamentally means is that now you are not actually doing the work, you're not running after the people, but rather coaching the people how to do it appropriately. If the people face any kind of a roadblock, then you become that roadblock buster. You bust the barriers for your people so the team can move ahead. You analyze the business, that is what the business is looking for, and you facilitate the opportunities for the people so that they can perform better. You also look at the result, you catalyze the result, you ensure that people are moving towards the result, and you become a living example of motivating the people, where people look at you and say, wow, here's my leader who can make it happen, and then why I also can't make it happen. So you have to actually transform into the role of a leader and coach rather than become a passive supervisor only with a top-down structure. Okay, so this is a very, very important when you have a high-performance work team. Your organization also has to change accordingly. Okay, I'll come to an important slide, which is House of Operational Excellence. So in order to achieve the operational excellence within a company, you need to have a clear plan of action, and you need a good partner to help you through the process of implementing a business plan that includes the 4 categories which we had talked about earlier. Okay. The key is now good framework, which sometimes we also call it as an operational excellence house. Okay. This framework, includes things like Six Sigma. It also includes Lean. It also includes the Kaizen and the other key methods that are used together to complete this structure. You cannot have a complete house without each of these pieces. Okay? And once you have this house, it provides a high-level framework for integrating your all strategies into a business execution system, and that helps you to achieve your operational excellence. Okay? As I said, in the center itself, you have the Lean and the Six Sigma methodology. It also carries the performance management, strategy deployment, strategic planning processes, along with a clean organizational mission and vision. Okay? So this is what we have to build up as part of our effort towards, or our journey towards, the operational excellence. Okay? I will take a couple of the examples and talk about it, that how people have done it. This is an example about the DuPont. So DuPont, as you would know, is a very large global chemical company, and they're also Deming Award winners and so on and so forth. They actually have got a lot of models and systems from DuPont, which other companies have actually kind of followed through. So DuPont concept over here revolves around this strategic clarity, culture of operational excellence, advantaged architecture and processes, well orchestrated journey, and the superior alignment and execution. So this is their framework around which they have built up their entire operational excellence over here. Now, if you would have noticed over here, they have not brought in the customer as part of their excellence model. They're taking the customer as an intrinsic thing. They are saying that everything which I'm doing over here, whether it is a culture of operational excellence, advantage architecture and process, or anything, it's all for the customer. So for them, customer is intrinsic or internal to every action they take over here. Okay. Sorry, So when we talk about the DuPont operational excellence model, it also has a well-defined management system. It would focus upon the asset productivity, capital effectiveness, and the operation risk management. Okay? These are the 3 areas where it focuses while building up their operational excellence model around the 5 value systems which they identified over here. Okay? There is another example I would put in, which is of Storebrand operational excellence model. And Storebrand is a financial service company in Norway, different segment altogether. DuPont is a manufacturing company. Storebrand is a service company. I thought that I'll pick up this example because people would say that, can I bring the operational excellence in service also? Yes, you can. Okay, and it's a financial service company. So it focuses on, it has got a lot of financial rules and regulations also to be looked into. So this company focuses on customers, processes, capital, and people. And this is exactly based upon the proper balanced scorecard approach. Okay, so they focus upon that. However, since this is a financial company, they also include the banking laws and regulations, which are based upon the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. So they also bring in those rules and regulations as well as part of their operational excellence. Okay? So if you would look into it, these are very simple models. Only thing is that deploying that and actually making it happen is where the maximum work starts coming in. Okay, but models are very simple. Operational excellence is not too difficult to kind of achieve. Okay. So if I look up into the future of operational excellence, then future of operational excellence, specifically into the manufacturing, is not about productivity, efficiency, standardization, and so on. These are the standard things which you will anyway work upon when you are working using the lean methodologies, Six Sigma methodologies, and so on and so forth. When you move forward, the, the concepts we need to focus upon are the concepts of growth, innovation, and customization. Now the world is more connected and it is very, very fast paced. Manufacturing industry also needs to keep up the pace along with this pace which the world is moving with. And that's where the growth, innovation, and customizations become very, very important. Okay. So today, if I take some characteristics of the successful companies, then I would say, do they have seamless integration between the various elements of the supply chain? Because that is what makes them successful, because they can quickly get the things, assemble and then produce it, and then put it back in the market. Are the sales, marketing, research, and development are closely linked to the manufacturing process? If they have that, then that's what they can move fast. Do they have a formal management of the innovation and product launch processes? That's another important part. Do they collaborate with the customers and suppliers together to improve the results? Do they have the people who are cross-trained in various roles? Do they have the processes that focus on the speed optimization? Okay, so these are the characteristics which now the successful companies have got. And the successful companies, that's why now, instead of focusing upon the productivity, efficiency, and the standardization, are now actually in the operational excellence, focusing more on the growth, innovation, and customization. Okay, so that's the direction which people are taking up in this. Okay. I many times see in organizations which are focused on how do I increase my sales, how do I get the new customers, or how do I enter the new markets. But then it becomes too much, of a task to meet all of these new demands. And what happens is that over a period of time, they get so much locked down into just, meeting these demands of larger market, larger sales, larger customer base, that they forget that how actually I can innovate, how I actually can grow, how I can actually customize. So it's very important that we have now the different focus into the organizations over here. Okay. Operational excellence has a manifesto of its own. So operational excellence is nothing but a result that comes when, everybody in the company is contributing over and above what is generally expected of that person on a day-to-day basis. Okay. So efforts to improve the company performance ensure that the company is always innovative and competitively positioned in its value proposition to its present and future customers, and to drive both the short-term and the long-term value. So if we look at that background, then our operational excellence manifesto would become high degree of employee initiative and ownership. Okay. Employees working relentlessly towards the self-developing and learning, rapid conflict resolutions, no blame culture, future focus, and benchmarking. Okay. So if this becomes our manifesto, then obviously with the 4 building blocks and the respective tools which we deploy to make those things work, we can actually move very, very fast towards establishing the operational excellence in our organization. Okay. So just to sum up, what did we learn over here? A successful implementation of business execution system would integrate the 4 building blocks: strategy deployment, which once again is all about alignment, linking objectives, initiatives, executions through the mapping and planning; performance management, which is nothing but the KPI and the cross-functional alignment; third, process excellence, which is being process-centered, efficient and effective management, value chain and support processes; and the last, fourth, high performance work team, which means the values, right attitude and mindset, employee engagement and empowerment, and coaching, leadership development. These are the 4 building blocks which we require for implementing the operational excellence. And if we follow the spirit of the squirrel, way of the beaver, and gift of the goose, then our teams can achieve tremendously in our organization. Okay. Future of operational excellence now lies in ensuring the high growth by the innovations and the customization. And that is what the operational excellence broadly is all about. Okay. So friends, if I again put down the whole summarization once again, Operational excellence is nothing but a mindset and it's not a methodology overall. Okay. It is essentially a relentless pursuit of finding ways to improve the performance and profitability. It is finding the money and performance which boost the areas where the organization normally don't look into. Just for your information, probably very shortly, we will also be starting a certificate course on what is the operational excellence. And that's where we will be covering these 4 building blocks of the operational excellence more in detail and the various tools which go into, implementing this operational excellence. We can also run these specific courses for you and your company to help you start your journey towards the operational excellence as a destination. You can always reach out to Mr. Kishore Sharma for more details. So thank you for being part of this webinar. I hope that it has been useful. It might have cleared some of your myths about the operational excellence. It's not about only the tools and tool implementation. It's a culture and it's a complete philosophy. Thank you once again for being part of it, and look forward to speaking to all of you in future in the weekly webinars which we are holding along with Auro University on the various lean methodologies, productivity systems, and so on and so forth. Thank you once again. So over to you, Kishore. Kishore, you are on mute and you're frozen. Are you there? I think there is some issue along with Kishore, but so friends, this is what we had this on the 13th webinar. One of the, I can't see the questions, so I don't know if there are participant questions over here. Unfortunately, I won't be able to take any questions if there are. However, I'm sure you can always post your questions, share it along with Kishore on the feedback link, and we can get back to you on those particular questions going forward, either via the email or into the next webinar if you're part of that as well. Okay. Kishore, are you there? And friends, give a second.
Sir, due to certain reason, Kishore ji is presently not available.
Okay. All right. No issues. So I think we will close it over here. So thank you everyone for joining in. And next webinar we will be holding is on the coming Friday, same time. And we are going to talk about the Muda Mura Muri. We will go in depth on the Muda Mura Muri. I'll also share a lot of, actual real life stories about how the Muda Mura works and how you can use it into your organization as well. I'll share my experience and the real life stories over there. So look forward to everyone, joining in as well. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.